This is our protagonist, Daichi, a boy whose father was a space pilot, but passed away not too long ago, and is now under the care of one of his father's colleagues. During parent-teacher conferences at school, the homeroom teacher mentioned that Daichi has been rather unmotivated in his studies lately. However, the reason for this is because Daichi has no interest in the knowledge taught in school, and only wants to learn about things that he is interested in. When the homeroom teacher asked if he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and become a space pilot, his guardian mentioned that Daichi's father has nothing to do with his future. After school, Daichi went to an arcade to play games, where he met a classmate of his there. He mentioned that the arcade is his family's business. He then invited Daichi to his house to play, where he found 2 other female classmates of his there. They planned to invite Daichi to go to an abandoned mansion to play, but Daichi declined. Daichi then suddenly saw a news report on TV about a mysterious circular pendant. Something about it reminded Daichi of something, causing him to decide to leave. Back in the past, Daichi had once ventured into a restricted area, where he met another young boy there. The boy asked about the pendant that Daichi had, and he mentioned that it was something that his father had left behind. Daichi then immediately set off to return to the place where he had first seen the circular pendant. Back in the present, as Daichi climbed over a fence to meet up with the boy decided to show Daichi how he could jump down from a high place without getting hurt. Daichi then decided to make a bet with him using the pendant. He used a boomerang to knock it away, and then retrieved the pendant. A few days later, the boy introduced himself as Teppei and asked Daichi if he wanted to see something else amazing. It was Teppei who had shown Daichi the circular pendant for the first time. Daichi then visited his father's old workplace, and met one of his father's old colleagues there. He asked him if his father had really died. He recalled how his father had sacrificed himself by flying into space to protect the Earth from an alien invasion. Daichi then went to the place where he had first met Teppei. It was 3 months before his father had died. At that time, Teppei had led Daichi deeper into the restricted area. Because Daichi believed Teppei's words that there was something interesting inside, he followed him, and after a long journey, he met a girl there. The girl had never woken up until Daichi accidentally touched her. He then also noticed that the girl was holding something in her hand. As they were bringing the girl outside, all 3 of them were caught, and that was the last time Daichi ever saw Teppei again. And now, Daichi was suddenly able to enter the restricted area once again. He followed the path that Teppei had shown him, but when he reached a new area, Daichi thought that he was lost. He suddenly met a girl, and the girl led the way for Daichi to continue. At the same time, outside in space, a giant robot suddenly appeared to attack Earth. The space station that Daichi's father used to work at quickly sent out spaceships to intercept it. Daichi was then brought to the deepest part of the restricted area, and the girl suddenly showed Daichi a vision of the robot approaching to destroy Earth. Daichi wanted to find a way to stop it, when suddenly a gun appeared in his hand. Daichi was then transported to a spaceship and met a scientist. The scientist asked him if he was the captain. He had no idea what was going on, but he wanted to save Earth, and the gun in his hand reacted to his will. The space station then suddenly detected that other space stations were also suddenly operating on their own, and launching missiles without any orders from them. A missile was then launched from Earth and separated into a smaller robot. It then flew past 3 space stations and combined with parts from each of them, becoming a giant robot. Daichi's father's colleague then discovered that Teppei was still there, and wondered who was piloting the robot. He then contacted the robot and was surprised to find Daichi inside. Suddenly, another person contacted Daichi, and told him the current situation. He was in the middle of a battlefield, and if he let that thing reach Earth, the entire world would be doomed. The robot that he was piloting was currently being powered by the gun that he was holding. Noticing that Daichi didn't seem to know anything about piloting a robot, the girl contacted him, and told him to just hold onto the gun, and supply it with energy, and she would take care of the rest. However, it was difficult to keep firing shots like this, and the enemy kept dodging, so the girl apologized if Daichi ended up dying. However, Daichi didn't want to die, so he continued to supply energy through the gun. The robot suddenly charged towards the enemy and got close. The girl quickly fired at close range and caused the enemy to be destroyed. Although they were victorious, the robot had taken quite a bit of damage. The scientist then informed the commander that the girl who had remotely piloted the robot was someone that he wanted to introduce to the commander. The scientist would soon bring her to the base to meet him. Daichi and the robot were then slowly descending towards Earth. Daichi then landed safely in the form of the smaller robot, and was met by the commander. He then took Daichi to get a checkup. His physical condition was confirmed to be completely fine. Daichi's gun was then taken away to be stored somewhere else. The commander then told Daichi that this organization was outwardly a public organization that developed space technology for peaceful purposes. However, its true nature was as a defense organization to fight against extraterrestrial invaders. The commander then took Daichi on a tour, when suddenly he noticed that a group of people from the security forces had arrived, and were causing a commotion. It was the girl that Daichi had saved who had used a device to control them. Daichi ran over to Teppei, and planned to invite Teppei and the girl to go play baseball with him. However, before they could go far, both Teppei and the girl suddenly got severe headaches. The cause was from the device that the security forces had put on them. He then took the girl and Teppei away. The scientist then explained to Daichi about the gun. It could generate energy, but the scientist suspected that the gun was a living being, as it seemed to have a will of its own, because not just anyone could activate it. Meanwhile, it was revealed that the ones who had piloted the robot to attack Earth were actually from a corporation on Earth. The corporation had provided technology to two self-proclaimed world saviors. These two had sent their consciousnesses out into space to form the robot and attack Earth. The president of the corporation had a twisted desire to rule the world, and his plan was to have only those that he chose survive in the new world. Daichi was then taken to another location, and met with the scientist again. He introduced himself as Professor Vito, and wanted to talk to him about the gun. Vito mentioned that Daichi's gun was the second one to appear here. The first gun was brought by a girl named Hana. However, she couldn't use it herself, so they trained Teppei to use it instead. Daichi then wondered why Teppei and Hana seemed to be in pain yesterday, and the scientist mentioned that the security forces had to monitor and restrain Hana and Teppei using this device. If they had any intentions of resisting, the ultrasonic waves from the tower would affect the device. The scientist mentioned that Daichi would also soon be fitted with this device. Daichi asked where his gun was, and the scientist mentioned that it was no longer his. It was then revealed that it was Daichi's father who had helped to create the robot that he had piloted. So some people thought it was destiny that Daichi was chosen for that robot. Daichi then suddenly ran to the beach and made the device on his head keep beeping. Daichi put his hand out to take the brunt of it, and shot it towards the tower that was sending out the signal. Teppei and Hana were freed, but the bald guy grabbed Hana again, so Hana's squirrel had to jump on the guy's face to help Hana get away. The three of them then played frisbee on the beach, and Teppei wondered why Daichi came back. He said he came back to keep his promise to show Hana frisbee, and he wanted to find his feelings again here. But the next day Daichi and his two friends were arrested. The three of them were then taken to the command room, and the bald guy said that Hana had just been approved for use with this control device. But the commander said that this device would be abolished in this base, because he was the one in charge here. The bald guy had nothing to say back, so he just left. Meanwhile, Bitter had invited the person he was talking about last time to the base. The commander was surprised when it was Akari, his daughter. She had been living with her mother after he and his wife split up, and the commander's wife was the governor on the space station. Daichi realized that Akari was the navigator who had helped him in the battle before. Akari was a professional hacker. The reason was because her parents were often hospitalized, so she was always left home alone, so she became good with computers. 5 years ago, the commander had promised to go to her graduation. But in the end, he ended up forgetting about his daughter because of work. The commander then had to take Teppei and Hana to buy clothes. The commander then apologized for not being able to get the two of them out of the base sooner. He also promised that he would take responsibility for the two of them and Daichi. After that, the group would live at his house from now on. While cleaning up the house, Daichi took the opportunity to cook something for everyone to eat for dinner. The commander then said that everyone was now a member of the household, so they had to be considerate of each other while living together. Suddenly, Hana came out naked and asked everyone how to use the bathroom since it was different from the one at the base. Everyone then had to turn around. That night, Hana ended up sharing a room with Akari. Hana's squirrel suddenly came back, and Akari remembered seeing the squirrel at the shrine that morning. Daichi and Teppei were now sitting on the balcony watching the sunset. Daichi couldn't believe that just 2 days ago he was still worried about his future. But now he was here, Daichi wanted to see Teppei's pendant again, so he showed it to Daichi. Teppei wondered why Daichi didn't ask him about it sooner. But Teppei soon realized that Daichi hadn't changed at all since the first time they met. Teppei admitted that he was surprised by Daichi's gun, so he gave the pendant back to Daichi. Meanwhile, the bald guy from the Anin Corps contacted a faction, and this faction demanded that he take control of Hana, and that Daichi was a factor that needed to be eliminated. Meanwhile, at the other corporation, the second gear had started to take action. He knew about Daichi's gun and suspected that the faction had used some kind of princess. It seemed to be referring to Hana. Anyway, the gear guy was now officially flying into space. The command room received a warning, and the bald guy realized that this was the enemy who had once killed Daichi's father. Daichi was now sitting writing a report about when he got the gun. But he didn't know what to write. Suddenly the bald guy came to him. He came to let him know that the enemy was attacking again. And it was the one who had killed his father in the past. The commander was now very emotional because the enemy that he thought had been killed by Daichi's father years ago had now reappeared. He didn't want Daichi to know about this because he didn't want him to be hurt anymore. But Daichi was already in the missile and taking off. The commander didn't know who had let Daichi go, but the bald guy came to him. He was the one who had allowed Daichi to go. The governor then called to ask why the commander had let Daichi go. Because the robot's armor had not been fully protected. And this, of course, was what the bald guy wanted. The commander then banned the security forces from going to any secure area without his instructions. Hana was now suddenly informed by her squirrel, so she dragged Tepai along with her. Akari now found a way to hack into the satellites out there to support Daichi. Akari said that this was nothing compared to the time she hacked into the US Air Force last year. At the same time, Hana was transferring energy into some kind of machine, and the satellites were being destroyed one by the enemy. Daichi asked the commander if the enemy was really the one who had killed his father. Daichi then confronted the enemy. He dodged the bullets from Daichi and approached to blow him away. He then rushed in to attack Daichi, when suddenly, another robot appeared. The enemy thought this robot was his ally, but suddenly this robot turned around and slashed at the gear guy. Hana let everyone know that the other robot was their ally. The other robot then created a rainbow bridge which made Daichi realize that this was Tepai. The commander then went to Tepai's cockpit and wondered how this machine had never worked before, but now it could fly Tepai out. Because Bitter thought it was Hana who did it. And Akari thought that their victory this time was probably due to many gods blessing them. After the battle, the gear guy couldn't understand why the person he thought was his comrade had betrayed him. The next day Daichi and Akari were sitting around worrying about what would happen to Hana and Tepai. Akari did something rather strange just to make Daichi feel better. And she decided that the two of them would live in the base her way. They were being taken for a general checkup, and they were able to confirm that Hana was the one who had made the machine work. Tepai was also being checked for something about his brain and mental health. Bitter let Tepai know that the thing he had been piloting was something they had taken from the other corporation. The same thing they had found and brought Tepai to this place. And until yesterday, they had no idea that it could work. The other corporation had said that this device was being developed as a humanoid interface for weapons. But now they knew that it was something with a greater function and served some purpose. And Tepai didn't control the other robot. He was the soul of that robot. Because until yesterday, Tepai had been acting like a normal boy, but today he had started to show strange symptoms. Bitter wanted to try to study what specific changes Tepai would have. The commander decided to keep this a secret from the entire base until they investigated further. Even though he knew that the situation was beyond their authority. And while everyone was still wondering if Tepai would betray them, the commander said that Tepai had saved Daichi last time. So, for the time being, they could consider Tepai an ally. Tepai was now feeling conflicted because he was similar to the enemy they were fighting, a Gear World. Meanwhile, the two Gear World guys from the corporation had returned to the island in a Criff food truck. Daichi and Akari had now come to buy 2 crepes, and Hana's squirrel kept acting wary of the food truck. Daichi and Akari then went inside to play, and found out that Hana was being checked up on in the infirmary. Akari was worried and found out that Tepai was in the interrogation room, so the commander let Daichi go and see him. When he got there, Tepai created a rainbow in his hand. As a child, he was very proud of it. But now that he knows it's not normal, he avoids doing it in front of others. Tepai thinks that he's not the real Tepai anymore. But Daichi tells him that he should just be himself. He returns the position of Tepai to him because of his gratitude for saving his life earlier. At the same time, 2 Gearworlders break into the police station to steal a car. Although the police station has 2 guards, one at the gate and one on camera, the 2 of them hacked the camera and reached the guard's camera room and hacked into the organization's system. Akari and the entire organization notice it, and they find out that they are targeting Daichi. The commander and 2 subordinates go to find Daichi Tai. The 2 of them are now looking for Tepai. They know Tepai's identity, but he has given up that name. They want to know why Tepai betrayed them yesterday, and whether he intends to rebel. But the commander and the adjutant arrive. He wants to know who these 2 are, and Tepai now remembers, and realizes, that they are the ones who sold him. But the 2 of them say that they are Gear Worlders. The blue-haired one is Amarok, and the girl is Mankin. They were about to fight to the end when Akari regained control of the system, and they decided to run away in the car to escape. The commander and the adjutant then followed. Amarok has a robot that they had hidden in the car from Tepai, and starts to wreak havoc around. The adjutant uses heavy weapons to fight back, but they only get more and more damaged, but Teppei steps in to stop them. He is willing to let them take him away, but Daichi has arrived. He doesn't allow Teppei to go and uses his energy to fight. Amarok is also surprised, and his robot is also broken by Daichi, so he calls Mankin to retreat. Amarok has never seen such energy before, and suspects that it is a new form that has been created recently. Teppei has stayed with the humans, but he is still sure that Teppei will not dare to rebel, because the feeling of transforming because his real body is in space is a feeling that cannot be forgotten. The commander doesn't know who they really are, but the fact is that they are the ones they need to confront. And if their robot reaches Earth, they will lose. He then returns to the command room and learns that Akari has taken care of fixing the system. He asks Akari first and learns that she has returned first. The commander asked Peter what he thought of their younger generation, but Peter didn't know what to say. The next day, the doctor wants Daichi to stay in the hospital for a few days for examination. He thinks he's fine, but Hana wants him to let them check him out. The doctor is then called by the commander, so he asks Teppei to meet him. Teppei now feels that it is really strange that he can be with his friends like before. Hana thinks she has done something terrible to Teppei, but he doesn't see it as her fault. He's just afraid that he will become an enemy of the friends he loves. And the next time he returns to his robot form, he's afraid he won't be able to control his mind. Teppei then goes to meet the commander, and he gives him a top-secret mission. They will board the governor's space station to bring a criminal back here. The criminal is Iji, and he is a target of the enemy. They must get him before the enemy does because his genes are very special. It is from his genes that they were able to create Teppei, so Iji can also be considered Teppei's father. Since he doesn't need to become a robot this time, he can do it at ease. And Akari went with Teppei to the space station. Because it is very difficult to get permission for Teppei to go there to arrest the sleeping criminal, Akari is needed to go with him to make the excuse that Akari is going there to meet her mother. When they arrived at the space station, Teppei noticed something in the landing area. When he went to meet the governor, who is also Akari's mother, Teppei asked the staff there, because another ship had just arrived, and he learned that it was a supply ship for the space station. Teppei and Akari then began their top-secret mission to find the prisoner Igai. Ari realizes that someone else has also infiltrated here, and they must be after Ig as well. But, since the two of them have discovered them first, they will have the advantage in the fight. The two of them went to the hibernation room first, and found Ig's cell. Teppei can't believe that the person who created him is so young. He must find a way to escape. Teppei thinks that he will wake Ig up and take him out through the escape route. As soon as he wakes up, Ig recognizes Teppei because he gave him that name. Hearing that he is in trouble, Ig decides to cooperate with him to escape. The three of them find a way to open the escape hatch. The infiltrators then open the door, and find that the escape hatch is open, so they know that they have been tricked and follow them that way. But the three of them have been hiding in 3 different hibernation pods to trick them and really escape. Igi considers himself Teppei's father, but Teppei doesn't want to accept Igi, because he doesn't have a real father. The 3 of them are then attacked by an infiltrator who stayed here. Igi has come up with a plan. He drops 3 sets of clothes from the cargo bay. The other guy tries it on, thinking it's the same as the I get escaped in one set, and fights Teppei to get the antidote. He still manages to fire a shot, so Ig shields Teppei, and is then knocked out by Akari. Igi has a way for them to escape before the infiltrators arrive. They will use the explosives that the infiltrator brought with him to blow open the door. The 3 of them escaped with 1 shot and went to the hangar to board the ship. But the place has been cordoned off and Ig still has a way to escape. But Teppei doesn't want to see Ig as his father, so he takes Ig and then grabs Teppei's anesthesia gun and anesthetizes him. Igi decides to go alone, because the pursuers are all bounty hunters, and if he goes with Teppei, Teppei will be targeted more. But if he goes alone, he will draw all the attention to himself and keep Teppei safe. He knows that someone brought Teppei here to meet him, and that the main plan is secondary. The commander now tells us that Ig committed the crime of treason because of Teppei. He didn't want Teppei to be turned into a weapon, and now Ig has been taken away by the infiltrators. It's all to keep Teppei safe. The 2 of them then go back to apologize to Akari's mother for lying about the mission. On the way out, Teppei notices that Akari and her mother love each other very much, and she thinks that Ig and Teppei are the same. On the way back, the commander says that the group that captured Ig is in the jurisdiction of the security forces, but when questioned, they try to justify it. Teppei thinks the mission has failed, but the commander says that Ig escaped as soon as he landed, so it can still be considered a success. The governor calls the commander the next day. She wants to know about Ig, but he has not been found yet, and they should find him soon, because the organization doesn't want the plan with Daiji to be hindered. Akari is found eavesdropping, so they also tell her about the plan the organization is carrying out to help people escape when something bad happens. This plan is top secret, so Akari is not allowed to share the information outside. The governor now sees that Teppei's robot is still out there doing nothing, so he leaves it alone and doesn't touch it. Daichi is still practicing his robot regularly. Since he is quite good at this kind of game, it is not difficult to learn how to control it. Only his combat stats are far behind Teppei's. Teppei wants to practice more, but Hana will take care of it, so he agrees to stop practicing. As for the other group, the president's plan is to let the chosen ones fall, and the rest will be wiped out by the robots along with the Earth. The robots will then also fall out of the solar system because they will have no reason to stay here anymore. The commander once again returned to the island to recruit Daichi's father, and met his guardian there. Daichi went to talk to Hana, and asked her about the words she said when they first met. She said that she was created by the gears of the world to be used as a tool. But she couldn't be used, so she was thrown away in a dark place. And she met the light that pulled her out of that dark place. And that light was Daichi. And Teppei told Akari about the nature of the gears of the world. They are made from the material of the cube. Back then, it contained a crystallized soul, and if it was not destroyed, the gears would be almost immortal. But Teppei didn't like being a gear, because once the purpose is achieved, he will have nothing left but to be used. Is immortal history a flat happiness, or just a prison? Akari couldn't answer, so she went to find something for him. In the meantime, the president of the group himself told us that his office had a security system that only he could enter. But Amarok and Mankin easily hacked into his computer. The two of them and the computer colluded to deceive the president, because he only thought of one of his own goals and did not know the true identities of the two. They then notified the supervisor, and wanted him to quickly capture Hana. Daichi met his guardian and uncle at this time. He asked the commander to let him talk to his uncle. At first his uncle thought he was just traveling and then came back, but he joined a government organization and did dangerous work while he was still a minor. He was grateful that his uncle always thought of him, but he had work to do. In the meantime, Hana felt like she didn't belong in this world. Suddenly a supervisor came and pointed a gun at her. Her adopted son ran back to call Daichi. He noticed the strange behavior of his adopted son and followed him, and saw the other man threatening Hana to take her away. His uncle also came to see him and wanted Daichi to avoid it because the other man had a gun. But he wanted his uncle to back down. He took out his energy gun, but the other man thought he didn't have the guts to kill, so he put the gun back and threw the boomerang. The other man dodged it, but he didn't expect the boomerang to fly back and hit him in the head with a water gun. He was then arrested, and Daichi's uncle decided to leave him here for the commander to manage because he saw that Daichi had changed and was more motivated than before. Then, the commander showed her the treatment of what happened to the planet. That's what will happen if the robots of the gears of the world enter the Earth, and anyone who gets close to their robots will have their life sucked away. As for Daichi, because he has a protective gun, he is the only one who can fight them now. The commander could only feel helpless, because their current situation was almost hopeless. The president of the group now felt sorry for the government organization, because they did not know that this AI was the factor that selected the people in the new world. But Amarok and Mankin felt sorry for him because he didn't know that he was the one being used. In the meantime, the commander's intelligence agency has now investigated a research facility 10 years ago. And this facility is a subsidiary of the group of companies, which is the name of the group that opposes the government. And in this picture, they can find Amarok and Mankin here. This place used to experiment to create children compatible with the gears they created and turn them into robots in the sky. And after an incident, all the children disappeared except Tep. The fact that those robots have been put into operation shows that the plan of the group has gradually reached the final stage of success. And according to Tep, the gears of the world are trying to collect energy from the Earth to reactivate the mothership that is dormant behind Uranus. It can be said that this is a real disaster. And if the Amarok force, which is the executive of this matter, they will definitely bomb the group and blame it on terrorism. The government will never let the people know about the impending disaster, because they think that even if people know, it will not help, but it will easily cause more chaos. Daichi's group was still sitting there eating watermelon. Tep thinks that these peaceful minutes are precious, because as long as one person approaches the Earth, the energy of the whole Earth will be sucked away. But Akari thinks that with Tep here, there is nothing to worry about. But Tep thinks that he is not sure whether he will lose control if he returns to robot form. So don't expect too much from him. Daichi wants the group not to be too pessimistic, but to be hopeful and look to the future. Suddenly, Hana's adopted son started to panic. So the group had to go to the commander and let him know that the adopted son was warning them that the gears were about to attack again. She also pointed out the location where the gears would use the gears to launch into the sky. At the same time, she guessed that the gears would act today. Daichi didn't know when he had entered the missile to prepare for takeoff. The commander did not allow Daichi to go, because he had died twice. Seeing that Daichi was too much like his father, the commander couldn't find a way to stop him, and indeed, at that age, mankind has been launched into the sky to attack. The commander didn't expect Hana to be able to predict this far. She said that her adopted son had never lied about anything. Daichi was then allowed to take off and fly into space, skipping the transformation process. Daichi has begun to face the enemy and landed. Mankind still knows how to dodge the bullets, and at this moment, Amarok has also appeared to fight. Hana felt it, and called Teppy to go with him. But Teppy refused to say that if he became a robot, he would no longer be himself. Akari stepped forward and slapped Teppy to make him realize. She loves Teppy, and must come back at all costs to eat melon with everyone as promised. Teppy made up his mind and lied to Hana. In the meantime, the addition of Amarok to the battle has put Daichi at a disadvantage. He was quickly taken away by Amarok, and asked him to carry mankind through both of them. Because for the gears of the world, as long as the gears are still functional, they will still live. But Daichi is different. Mankind then shot out a huge arrow, and if Teppy didn't dodge it, Teppy would also be pierced by the arrow and turned into a functional gear. But Teppy then decided to pull out the functional gear and use it to block the arrow. The explosion from the collision shattered mankind and had to return. Daichi pushed Amarok away, but he had lost his thruster and could no longer rush forward. Just then, Akari pulled a satellite to bring Daichi forward. She then detonated a few missiles to increase Daichi's speed and help him defeat Amarok in one blow. Mankind and Amarok's machines were now destroyed, and they were quite angry that Teppy had officially betrayed them. Everyone came to Teppy, and was surprised to find that Teppy no longer had any special powers, and had become an ordinary person. And in his hand was another gear. The commander then called his wife to inform her that he wanted Akari to become a full-time employee of the organization. The governor saw that the commander seemed to have found hope, so he agreed to let it go. The commander then went to Daichi's group. The group all had their own uniforms, and Teppy said that he was very surprised when Daichi managed to defeat Amarok. So the position of the circle returned to Daichi. The commander also said that the four of them would now be full members of the combat force in this organization. And Daichi would be appointed as the captain, making him wonder what a captain like him should do. Hana wanted the group to go eat melons first as planned. The chairman seemed a little worried because the two gears had acted on their own and failed, but the AI thought that everything was still under his control. So he didn't need to worry too much. Mankin and Amarok had now brought the gears back for the technical team to repair. They found that the excessive use of power by the two had caused the system of the gears to be overloaded. It would take 2 weeks to completely repair it. Since only Amarok and Mankin's gears were damaged, while the gears of the other gears were not, Mankin and Amarok decided to go find their familiar faces and return. Daichi's group had also boarded the ship to another city. Hana and the squirrel predicted that this city had a lot of power, and that the enemy was likely to appear here. The analysis of the data that Teppy had driven the ship revealed that this gear was only compatible with Teppy, and could not be used continuously. So it was certain that Amarok and Mankin would not be able to attack them for the time being, but would instead focus on finding the other 5 gears. Because according to Teppy, there were 8 people in total. Most of them had lost their memories of being a gear in the world. However, if they came into contact with another gear, the gear that had lost its memory could have its memory restored. Teppy also knew that Amarok and Mankin had the ability to locate the other gears. Because Teppy had lost his ability from the cube, his ability to sense had also been lost. Therefore, the commander had given the group the task of finding and preventing the other gears from recovering their memories after they had prepared their clothes. The commander's adjutant had informed the group of the location where Amarok and Mankin might bring the transformed gears and hide them tonight. But Akari didn't pay much attention to it and focused on finding out information. And the information that Akari was looking for was where they should go to play first. Akari's indifferent attitude made the commander's adjutant feel quite embarrassed. The group then went to a restaurant and casino to experience enough food here. Akari then wanted to use the squirrel's guessing ability to gamble. But Hana had to disappoint Akari because this guess was an instinct, not an ability. So it couldn't be used whenever he wanted. Suddenly, a casino employee named Din came over and said that underage children like them were not allowed in here. But the casino boss came over and said that he had let them in. He also told Din that he had someone to visit him when he left the casino. The two girls went to have a snack, while Daichi and Teppei went to the side to look for the enemy. Daichi was suddenly discovered by Amarok, but he was quite surprised because he and Boko from Daichi's family had such a fate. While he was at it, he also confirmed that he was the one who had killed Daichi's father. Daichi then immediately dodged the bullets from Amarok, and as soon as he got down, he ran away. Teppei then returned to Daichi, and told him that he should try to shoot before Amarok had a chance next time. Amarok then returned to join forces with Mankeen, and told her that Daichi's group was here. Both of them were sure that Daichi's group had guessed what their plan was. But Amarok found it more interesting this way, not that. While waiting to return to the ship, the commander noticed that Hannah's prediction had been accurate, but she said that it was the squirrel's prediction and that she had no credit for it. The commander had also investigated that the target the two gears were looking for this time was a 17-year-old. Daichi noticed a sense of familiarity when he mentioned a 17-year-old. In the meantime, the boy Din at the casino was led by the boss to meet the real owner of the casino. The casino owner knew that Din had an ability that could throw the ball on the roulette table exactly where he wanted it to go. Din didn't know what this ability was. He only knew that the ball would bounce to the person he was focused on. The casino owner wanted to use Din's ability to make a profit for the casino, and he promised to give Din a more comfortable life. But Din found this life with his previous gambling addiction to be quite boring. Suddenly, Amarok and Mankin came here. Amarok quickly knocked out the casino owner and let Mankin kiss and awaken Din's memory. Din then awakened his power and quickly found this world to be more interesting than before. Din was then taken to the gear to activate the robot. But this seemed to be a small robot, so Daichi's group was quickly able to deploy it. Daichi quickly led the small robot out to fight, and soon met Din. Din said that there was nothing here that he couldn't keep. The two sides began to fight, and Daichi didn't seem to be shooting very well, so he dodged the bullets. Akari then hacked into the system of the robot that Din was controlling, and realized that the boy at the casino they had met was a gear. Akari also quickly discovered that in just over a minute, the energy from Din's small robot would be transferred directly to the void form in the sky. Mankin and Amarok quickly realized that they had been hacked. Daichi had now managed to push Din back when Akari called to tell him that the enemy's energy fault was in the net. As long as he could break the energy fault, the enemy would not be able to transform. Amarok had informed Din that they had been hacked. But Din didn't care and created a life-threatening wave. This wave disabled all objects within a large radius. Din was about to shoot down Daichi, but Daichi suddenly used the ground to activate the robot and fired back at Din. The two shots passed each other, and Daichi, who had dodged the bullet, had already hit the energy fault. So the robot exploded, and the bullet had already gone off. The whole area then returned to normal. Akari noticed that they were also quite close, because the enemy had almost transformed in time. The shrimp felt that he was the most useless person in this matter. Din then returned to meet the other two. Amarok said that this time they had been hacked, so he wanted to deal with the person who had hacked into their system. The Zin had admitted that this world would be much more interesting from now on. And the next day, Daichi's group went to another city to find the next gear. Vito had analyzed the Zin robot last night, and found that the robot's stomach had a box that contained both the cost and the energy used to operate the robot. That energy was what the gears of Daichi's group could shoot out. When the energy box was put into the small door robot, the energy conversion time would be 4 minutes. Therefore, if they could blow up the energy box of the small door robot within those 4 minutes, they would prevent the robot from being activated. And this information was once again obtained by Akari. Being complimented so much made Akari feel extremely proud. But Akari had also been found out by Amarok and Mankin, and was targeted. Daichi's group went to eat again, and Teppei noticed that the enemy would appear here again. But taking them down in 4 minutes was also a problem that needed to be solved. Teppei felt a little uncomfortable because this crowded city would be the place where the battle would take place. Akari then suddenly decided to go for a walk and buy a new computer because the old one had been damaged after the shock last night. Teppei wanted to follow and protect Akari, but Akari thought he could protect himself. So Teppei focused on searching for the world gears with the others. But this made Teppei feel more and more useless. Meanwhile, they met Ika, a famous eco, but Ika was starting to get tired of being an eco. Because she had just read an article about her past being exposed, about how she was blind and couldn't go to school. She was worried that the audience might turn their backs on her and leave her alone again. But the manager thought that if she was hated, no audience would come to see her. Meanwhile, Ika was approached by Mangetsu. She headbutted him and ran away. But just when she thought she had escaped, Ika was cornered by Amarok. He rushed over and knocked her out and took her away. Meanwhile, Ika's manager informed the organizers that she was cheering for Ika, and believed that Ika was talented. But Mangetsu had already approached Ika in the bathroom, and then performed a ritual to awaken Ika's memories. Ika regained consciousness, and gained the power of a world gear. The others returned and only asked if they knew where Akari was. The group said that Akari had gone shopping, but Teppei wondered why he would turn off his phone while shopping. Teppei felt guilty for not following Akari to protect him. Akari had now regained consciousness, and was constantly being chased by Mangetsu. But Mangetsu then asked Akari to hack into the organization's system and shut it down. Imerock jumped down and shot Akari, telling him to do as he was told. The others didn't know where Akari had gone, and the time to attack was approaching, but he still hadn't returned. She thought Akari was just focused on his work, but Hana knew that Akari wasn't like that. The others got into the robot to wait for Teppei, but they suspected that something had happened to Akari. A moment later, Akar activated the robot and appeared on the roof of a tall building. The others quickly received the news and asked permission to go and stop him. The manager didn't allow it because the area was too far away, and the terrain was like a firing range, so the others would be at a disadvantage. But the others would rather be at a disadvantage than let the enemy attack the civilians, so they went to stop him, regardless. Teppei agreed and activated the system for the others to go and stop him. The anti-aircraft guns were raised, and the others were launched out of the train. The others then realized that he wouldn't be able to land in the right place, so he transferred energy from his gun to the robot, to fly a little further. The others then jumped down and flew over to fight back. But Akar's firepower was stronger, so the others were shot down. Akar had no intention of fighting to the end, because as long as he could transform into a robot without a pilot, they would win. Because Akari had now been ordered to stop the others from releasing a pilot, if they succeeded in transforming first. The others decided to take a risk. He took out his remaining gun and flew straight up to attack. Akar quickly shot down another one of the others' guns and took one of his arms. But the others risked opening their chest again and holding their own gun to shoot straight at Akar. She had taken the hit, but the others had increased their firepower, and shot down the robot's head, successfully preventing her from transforming. He then fell from the roof of the building, and was critically injured, with only 3 lives left. Akar had been defeated, so she decided to go back to being an idol to continue performing for her fans. Amarok had ordered Akari to blow up the entire enemy base. The others were now informed that their launch had been disabled by 90%, and that this had been caused by Akari. The group confirmed that Akari had been captured, and Teppei felt even more regretful for not going with Akari at the time. But Akari had now played her trump card. She flatly declared that she would no longer listen to either of them. She decided to launch all the nuclear weapons in the world, to destroy all of humanity. She didn't care if humanity was wiped out. Because according to Teppei, another purpose of the world gears like them, was to exploit the energy of humans. And if humans were wiped out, they would have to wait millions or even billions of years for someone to evolve again and provide them with energy. Mankind had kissed Akari and realized that Akari intended to do it for real, so Amarok had to let Akari go. She declared that aliens like them would never defeat humanity. And the next day, the group arrived at the next location, where the squirrel and Hana predicted that another battle with the world gears would take place. The commander asked the group to be careful this time because Akari had been captured last time. Although Akari thought it was no big deal. But it was different for someone as weak as her. Teppei now spoke out his pessimism because he couldn't contribute anything to the team. The manager thought that Teppei needed to realize his own strength and abilities. Teppei's current mission was to complete a strength test between him and his gun. Once he did well, the team's strength would increase. The others also encouraged Teppei, so he became more confident. Meanwhile, they met someone who was likely to be the next world gear. She was a girl with the name Dame with speed. She was a racer, and was noticed by many other racers. They wondered if Dame was the daughter of some tycoon or not, because she could have such a high-class motorcycle. To find out where Dame came from, they went to meet a researcher named Mao. She was Dame's best friend, and could be said to be the one who provided everything for Dame's racing. Dame then went to Mao to ask her to upgrade her motorcycle. Meanwhile, Dame and Hana were hanging out when Dame's necklace suddenly got caught on Hana's clothes. So he tried to get it off. But being so close to each other like this made Dame a little shy. But he managed to get it off, so things didn't go any further. Akari felt sad about what she had said to Teep. She didn't think Teepee would take it so hard that he couldn't contribute to the team. But somehow, Dame was happy to know that Teppei wanted to contribute to the team. Meanwhile, they learned that the reason Mao agreed to help Dame was because she needed Dame for one of her experiments. In the middle of the experiment, Mangetsu and Amarok suddenly arrived. Amarok came and woke Dame up. Mao was surprised when Demei's brain suddenly changed so much from before. Mao now realized who the Amarok group was. But after the three of them had dealt with the two researchers and left, the three World Gear members encountered the others. Amarok intended to kill the others there, but Lin wanted to chase him away, so Amarok attacked her instead. Lin then went to meet the others in front of the bridge. The two of them talked about death. What? Lin thought that even though humans would eventually die, we were still not perfect beings. But the others thought that being immortal made them World Gears, not human. The two of them talked for a while, then Amarok suddenly jumped down, so the others quickly followed and ran ahead. Lin immediately followed, but she quickly realized that the others had circled around behind her, and jumped down again. He wanted to take her down, but she knocked him out and ran away. Lin returned to Amarok and Mangetsu and stepped into the machine to fight. He wanted to chase the others after what had just happened. The anti-aircraft signal was detected, and the others knew who their enemy would be this time. The manager told the others that they had already encountered the enemy before, so they hoped he would be careful. Because the enemy was underwater this time, the others had to jump into the water to fight. Lin emerged and pulled the others into the water to fight. And Lin's machine was specially designed for underwater combat, so she could move at extremely high speeds. She attacked constantly and damaged the other's robot. Daichi was running out of time, so he let her rush at him and grab him. Daichi took this opportunity to attack her mecha's head. But before he could break her throat, time ran out, and Lin used the anti-gravity to fly into the air and transform. But Tep had been given permission to use a prototype that was still under development. Only Void was allowed because the prototype had not yet been fully tested, so combining with it was very dangerous. But Secret agreed to let Tep use it, because only Tep could report on the situation. Tep believed that Daichi had let the enemy escape, so he had a duty to catch them, because the team members had a duty to support each other. Only Void then gave Daichi the decision as team leader. Daichi gave Tep permission to go into battle, so Void called the commander to prepare for the fusion process. Tep was then launched into the air, and flew through 3 airlocks to fuse. Skip this process, then Tep's new robot is a bit like Daichi's that has a sophisticated design. And Tep has a rear cannon on his left hand to calculate long-range attacks. But Lin easily dodged with her speed and approached Tep. She then created several large-scale wings to attack Tep from different directions. The wings then surrounded Tep, so he had to close his eyes to feel the flow of energy instead of using his eyes to keep up with Lin's speed. The first salvo of shells was then fired at Tep, but he successfully dodged and crashed into the wing connected to Lin's robot form. She was temporarily paralyzed and returned to Amarok and Mankin. Lin told them both that there was another one. Daichi was very surprised by Tep's new ability. At the same time, Enhang and Q Mao woke up and returned home. And in Mao's house there was a little girl named Set Suna, and she also had a doll like Hana's. Just last year, Mao and another research team had been studying Set Suna's ability to find energy. It is possible that Set Suna's singing voice can create an energy source identical to the energy that the guns of Daichi's group can fire. And the next day, Tep returned to Daichi's group, and Daichi wondered if he was the only assistant leader. Akari thought that Daichi should be surprised again, which made him realize that he was still lacking a lot. Because letting the enemy live last time was his fault, he then gave the cord to Tep for the last time. And Tep also realized that there were only 2 more names to finish. In the meantime, the assistant went to a bar to meet the owner. She knew he had been a detective 10 years ago, and she came here to find information. She wanted to know why he had stopped being a detective. He didn't want to say, so she asked about the Mabbit Group incident 10 years ago. At that time, the Mabbit Group was developing a mobile weapon that could be used to transport people and machines. And the climax was that they created a flute to transport children through illegal movement. And someone denounced the group, and the government soon found the flute and took the children away. Those responsible for the project were quickly arrested. And at the same time in the suburbs of Tokyo, someone suddenly fell into a coma at night, and then did not wake up for many people. It was thought that this was due to the Mabbit Group's experiments on the elderly. During the time when the group was in turmoil, the current president took over and impeached the former president at that time, because the former president was later found dead, and the cause was determined by the police to be suicide. But the assistant came here to ask about what happened to the flute that the police took away. He had no more information about the flute, and the documents about them have also been destroyed. Because the former president prevented him from accessing information about the flute, he later went looking for them himself, and was then discovered and fired by the former president. The reason he went looking for the flute was because he suspected that the former president was hiding something, and did not believe that they had let the children go free and kept their information confidential. The assistant said that she had given up because it seemed that the detective had no more information. But he suspected that she knew something about the flute, because he remembered that the flute had a number marked from 3 to 8. That meant that numbers 1 and 2 were somewhere. And he suspected that there were more children being used in experiments to create illegal weapons. In the meantime, the president remembered how the former president had committed suicide, because before he died, the former president called him and said that he had been framed. But through the investigation, no one was really involved with the former president, so he suspected that the AI itself was the most suspicious thing. But it said that it was born with only one purpose: to do the job it was programmed to do. In the meantime, Hana and Akari unexpectedly met Susuna at the pool. Akari was surprised because Susuna also had a doll like Hana's, and she also wondered if the doll could talk. And normal people would definitely answer no. Mao and her assistant were now setting up a machine. Susuna then waited to return. Susuna said that she was happy that she was not allowed to leave the research area to explore before. But now, it is possible. Mao then asked Susuna to sit on the machine to be scanned. Daichi and Tep had now arrived at Mao's research area because they knew that this place was related to the Mabet group. Suddenly they met Amarok and Mankin here. In the meantime, they fired at both of them, but both of them had to dodge and then hide behind a tree. Tep didn't know when the two of them had awakened and were able to make such a thorough plan. Back to before. Mankin and Amarok had tried kissing to test their ability to read each other's minds. And then the current president of the Mabet group accepted both of them and then put them in the transformation machine to test it. It was also at this time that both of them officially regained their memories. Tep said that even though World Gear was not fully awakened, but if that person is another person, they can still use telepathy and read minds. In the meantime, she knew that she was planning an experiment to transfer her mind to another body. And she targeted Susuna because she knew that Susuna was an immortal World Gear. She had read this and quickly ran away. Mao tried to follow the sky immediately and was shot dead by her subordinate on the spot. In the meantime, Amarok and Mankin circled around and tried to fix Daichi, but Tep used his throat and fired a shot to create a shield to protect Daichi. The two of them did not expect Tep to become a person with a throat like Daichi, so they retreated. They then went to find Susuna and found that the place had been cleaned up and Susuna was no longer there. Mao's assistant then called his master to report that the mind transfer device had been taken away. She then met Kumiko, the daughter of a mafia boss. And one day when she was little, she had taken her to a slave trader to choose a subordinate she wanted from a jar. Kumiko didn't seem to like her father's career. She then chose a child who was sitting alone in the corner of the house. Returning to the present, Daichi's group had now arrived in a new area. The group noticed that the last time there were no robots activated, but Amarok and Mankin reappeared. Then one of the two remaining gears was in the area. But it seemed that the other two had not yet been found, and Hana's doll said that this trip would be different from the previous ones. Daichi was now asleep, so Akari told Hana to give Daichi a kiss to sleep well. Hana also innocently went to kiss Daichi on the cheek, and then went back to sleep. I then went to an underground arena, where the undefeated Baku was having a match with an opponent named Tokon. Even though Tokon was strong, Baku only needed one punch to maintain his undefeated status in this arena. I then learned that Baku was the child that the priestess Kumiko had bought from the slave market in the past. Kumiko thought that Baku didn't need to continue this work anymore, but he didn't want to go against his father's orders. Baku also asked the princess not to be too close to him because she was already engaged, but she completely ignored that. Someone else then came to take Kumiko back, because her father wanted to see her, and then went back to Daki's group. The group was eating and drinking as usual, when suddenly a wedding was taking place in front of them. Seeing the bride and groom kiss made Akari and Tepe wonder if Daichi had ever kissed anyone before. Daichi said that she hadn't, which made the two of them think that Hana had taken Daki's first kiss the previous night. The assistant then called and told the group that there was an illegal underground tournament in his city. She wanted to send someone to investigate, but Akari immediately volunteered for the job. The group then went to the underground arena, and was stopped by the guards at the door. Daichi took out an invitation, but the guards said that minors were not allowed to enter. Akari took out a gun to bribe them, so the group was able to get through the door. The group then went inside and saw Baku's match. His opponent this time was an enemy who used a spear to fight, and since spears were allowed, this guy just kept attacking relentlessly. But Baku quickly struck the opponent's wrist, causing him to lose his spear, and then delivered a straight punch to the jaw to knock him out. Akari found it very interesting, so he decided to jump into the arena to challenge him. The Daichi group was quite surprised that Akari had come here so soon. Daichi stopped Tepe from taking out his gun, because they shouldn't be fighting in a crowded place like this. Suddenly the slave owner who had owned Baku before was also here, and he still held a grudge against Akari. Akari then started the match and charged at Baku D. Baku was forced to defend himself continuously. Suddenly, Baku grabbed Amarok and threw him to the ground. But Amarok quickly escaped and locked Baku's neck, while also awakening Baku's memories. But Baku then escaped and caused the surrounding area to shake. Ding then appeared and Amarok and Mankin left the arena. Amarok was then followed by the slave owner and his men. Ding then appeared and warned the slave owner that if he valued his life, he would leave. But he didn't seem to listen, so Ding sent a flying sword through the slave owner's chest, and then left with Amarok. Meanwhile, Mankin met Baku and tried to awaken Baku's memories. But Baku fought back and then jumped out of the window to escape. The slave owner then suddenly came back to life, and his wound had also disappeared. He thought he was immortal and was not surprised by this at all. Meanwhile, Akari had investigated the underground arena and accidentally discovered an incident related to it. Ding was also looking through the information and didn't understand why the slave owner whom he had killed last night was not mentioned in the news this morning. The Daichi group then asked the assistant if there had been an earthquake last night, but there was no record of it. There was information about this incident, so it seemed that the shaking last night was caused by the power of the world's gears. Meanwhile, Kong Miko went to Baku and said that she had been having nightmares lately. Even though it was raining outside, she didn't love her father because he only saw people as tools, and her father's child trafficking business was the worst nightmare she had. She thought that she had no right to judge her father because she was the one who chose to buy Baku. But Baku didn't blame her because she had given him a place to belong, and the slave owner, who was also Kong Miko's fiancé, didn't like Baku being close to Kong Miko. Kong Miko then asked Baku to do the magic trick he had done before. This time, Kong Miko's mother's photo had been torn by her father, and Baku used magic, or rather his own power, to restore the photo. And now Baku did the same with the cards, and Kong Miko knew that this was Baku's power, not magic. Meanwhile, Daichi and Teppei were practicing shooting, and Teppei was doing quite well, while Daichi was doing quite badly. But in actual combat he was doing quite well, so the assistant told him to try using his own gun to shoot. He took out his energy gun and used it to shoot, and surprisingly he shot better than before, and the assistant wondered about the difference between the two guns. And Daichi said that this energy gun felt like a part of his body, because shooting this gun was like the way he used to move his arm. It was completely natural, and the assistant then received a message from Akari saying that another gear had been activated. Today, another gear will be activated. Because of this, Teppei's gear was being transferred here, so for now, they still had to rely on Daichi. The slave owner then went to see the referee, and asked him to prepare a grand finale for the tournament, so that he could earn as much money as possible, because after this match, the tournament would be cancelled. So, Daichi and Teppei went to the underground arena again. Daichi then went to the bathroom and met the referee. He recognized the referee, and asked him why he wasn't fighting, and the referee said that he just didn't want to protect the people he loved. The referee then went up to the arena, and met another big opponent with two curved swords. The referee quickly took the two swords and broke them, and then knocked out the opponent with a punch. The referee then returned to the waiting room and faced the slave owner and his men. He was about to attack the referee when they suddenly heard Kumiko's voice, so the referee knocked out both of them and ran to find the priestess. Amarok's group had captured Kumiko and asked the referee not to move. Mankind then came forward and awakened the referee's memories. Ding also released Kumiko, but just then, the slave owner came again and shot the referee. Kumiko stepped forward to protect the referee, and Ding wondered why the slave owner was still alive. Kumiko then realized that her wound had healed, and she realized that her long-held suspicion was correct. Akari then told the group about an explosion on a boat a year ago. Kumiko's entire family was on that boat, but strangely, no one died. Kumiko now knew that the reason she and the others in the explosion were still alive was because of the referee's power. A year ago, Kumiko had brought a bomb onto the boat, and decided to die with her family to end her father's evil career. The referee had used his power to restore that event, and made it impossible for those who were in the explosion to die. But Kumiko had had enough of this nightmare, and she wanted to be freed. The referee then had to free everyone from his power. And Amarok thought that everything the referee had kept was just an illusion. And the referee here decided to join the other world gears to save this world. The referee then got on the robot and started the match, and the referee was quickly defeated. He flew to the referee's place, and Amarok was also here to watch the match. The referee drew his sword, but the referee charged at him and knocked him down, and was about to deliver another punch. But the referee managed to dodge it. He then continued to take punches from the referee, and soon realized the referee's fighting style. The referee found that although the referee attacked continuously, he didn't have any killing intent at all. He couldn't figure it out, so he decided to charge straight at the referee and deliver a straight punch to the robot's head to end the match. The referee then returned to the group, and Teppei also realized that the new gear had awakened. However, the referee noticed that the referee seemed to be fighting to find his own death. After the other gears left the city he had dedicated his life to, Akari suggested that the group go on a vacation. According to Hana, the weather forecast predicted no disturbances for the next 3 days, so they could rest assured and not worry about anything. Akari then asked Daichi to agree with her, so Daichi, having no choice, reluctantly agreed to go on vacation as Akari wished. Meanwhile, Amarok and Mankane had their gears repaired, and the president was quite annoyed that the Mikan AI project was falling behind schedule. He didn't know if there was a flaw in the plan or if the other two were not cooperating with the plan. And if it was because of the other two, he needed a way to control them. Meanwhile, Daichi's group rented 4 rooms in a hotel to rest and spend the day. Akari wanted Daichi to try to control himself while he was there. Daichi didn't understand until he got to his room and found Hana in his room. And when he tried to enter the room, Daichi realized that his room was connected to Hana's room. Hana then went to take a bath, and Daichi had to control himself so as not to go too far. Akari was now very amused by Daichi's predicament. Teppei didn't know what to do during the vacation. Hana then told Daichi that she was going to bed first. Daichi went to Hana's room and saw that she was sleeping soundly, so he turned off the lights and went to bed. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, Daichi found Hana sitting on his bed and crying. Daichi went to see if it was really Hana or an illusion, but she suddenly ran back to her room. The next morning, Hana was as cheerful as ever. Akari asked Daichi if he had done anything last night, and he said that he had tried to control himself, and that he thought Hana might hate him. But Akari didn't believe him, and she then went to Hana to protect her from the stares of the boys on the beach. Teppei didn't think Hana hated Daichi because lately, every time Daichi went to bed, Hana would come and kiss him. Akari then asked Hana if she liked kissing, and who she liked better, Daichi or Akari. Hana immediately chose Daichi, which made Akari sure that Hana didn't hate him. Meanwhile, the president called Amarok and Mankin to see him. He asked them what they were doing, why they had disobeyed his orders, and why they had wasted so much of the corporation's rare energy. They both claimed that they were just sparring to improve their skills, so the president forbade them from using their gears without his permission. The two were quite angry, so they went to the AI and asked it to drop a satellite of the corporations directly onto the president's headquarters. This would both destroy the satellite they were escorting, and cause great damage to the president, whom they hated. But Teppei thought that Hana might also have the ability to kiss and sense emotions like the other gears of the world. So it was possible that every time Hana kissed Daichi, she saw something. That night, Hana was crying again in the middle of the night on Daichi's bed. He woke up and asked Hana what was wrong. And if it was okay, he wanted to kiss Hana, but Hana refused because she was afraid Daichi would hate her if he knew what she really was. Suddenly, the president called the group and asked them to assemble urgently. The president was also very excited when he heard that his satellite was about to crash into the Earth. The time until impact was less than 10 minutes. Everyone was very worried when they heard that a satellite the size of a planet was about to crash into the base. Because even if they could destroy the satellite, the damage to the base would be irreversible. Hana then decided to take action. She ran to the beach and pointed her hand at the sky, firing a beam of light directly at the satellite below. The satellite was completely incinerated by Hana's beam of light, and Amarok realized that their princess had begun to act. Teppei knew that the attack had been made by Hana, and Daichi wanted to go to Hana, but she asked Daichi not to come near her, and then ran away. The next morning, many people who had seen the light the night before thought it was a meteor, or perhaps a sunrise. But now that Hana was gone, the group found it difficult to act, but Akari believed that if Hana felt their actions, she would surely call them back. The organization was now facing a problem because of the energy shortage. And Amarok and Mankane were facing a similar situation. They had to go find Shuna and bring her back that day. The group still had no news of Hana. She had also turned off her locator, and they were worried that she would be in danger. But now, going out to look for her would be useless. Hana was wandering around when she accidentally met Shuna. She was painting to sell to earn some extra money. The two sat down and talked, and they realized that they had a common problem, the fear of being around others because they knew their true intentions. But Hana really wanted to be with Daichi. She was just afraid that he would hate her if he knew who she really was. Suddenly, she noticed Amarok and Mankin approaching. The two ran away and hid in an alley. Hana threw a rock at Shuna to try to distract her. Amarok then found Hana, but Shuna's dog ran out and bit him. Shuna also ran out to pull Hana away. Meanwhile, the president had begun to suspect the AI, and the two gears were secretly plotting behind his back. The AI was also exposed and showed its true face. It laughed maniacally, and said that his work had no effect on it. It then sat him down in a chair, and began to transform him. Hana finally decided to open up. She called the group to let them know that she was being chased by Amarok and Mankin. Daichi ran ahead, and Teppei and Akari followed close behind. Hana thought that Amarok was chasing her, so she let Shuna escape and made herself a decoy. She ran to the beach and saw that the AI was no longer chasing her. But she met Daichi there. The other two gears had cornered Shuna, and were ready to awaken her. Daichi kissed Hana, and officially declared his love for her. Amarok also kissed Shuna, and then awakened her. They both bowed down to her and told her who Hana really was. Shuna decided to welcome Daichi's group with her people's robots. Daichi had accepted Hana for who she really was, so he wanted her to stop running away from now on. Amarok and Mankin's robots then flew in to attack Teppei and Daichi had to stay behind to fight. They took down one gear, and the vice commander had to prepare to launch two robots for the pair. Mankin managed to capture Hana. Teppei and Daichi had just gotten into the robot when the other pair swooped down on them, knocking them off their feet. Hana was very angry, and for the first time, she turned her own gear on, and fought back against the two robots. Mankin was surprised, but Daichi was even more surprised. The attack was so powerful that it caused great damage. Amarok was also unable to dodge and was badly damaged. A few days later, Daichi was taken to meet the commander, and Pitter. Amarok and Mankin were called by the president again, and he was more lenient than usual. The two realized that they should have gone to the AI and asked it why, and it simply said that it had changed the president's personality with a few pieces of information. It had made the president fall in love with his secretary, so that he would focus less on his work, and become less stressed. But Amarok said that it didn't affect their plans. But now they knew the truth. The AI had transferred part of itself into the president's head. It wanted to manipulate both the corporation and the gears of the world. The entire Gears Society was now gathered in one place. The three wondered where Teppei was, and he had already awakened and become human. He could also use his gear, and was their strongest ally. Their original goal was for Hana to sell her gear, and give them energy. But now, Hana is on the opposing side and can use the power they need. Since there's only one energy tube this time, AI could decide to take on this attack. Back on the other side, Hana visited Daichi and Tepp flying. She asked about Daichi being called up this morning. He said that the injured squirrel made it impossible to predict where the battle would take place. But now that Hana can use her abilities, it's a step forward. And now that many forces will be targeting Hana, they decide to launch a new campaign. Before he could tell, Akari returned from her trip. Hana was so excited to come that Daichi promised to take her to the festival as soon as he got the job done. The commander who received the mission told him that the organization had planned to target the mothership of the rice cakes on the back of the King of Hell. Although they need to keep the rice cakes here to prevent them from returning to support their mother. These rice cakes have chosen a safe place for Ika to activate. And because no one came to destroy it, she became a space robot in just 4 minutes. The anti-personnel announcement arrived, and Daichi and Tepp flew to the command room. But the two robots of the two friends were broken and could not fly, so the commander sent Hana to stop this time. She also went through today just wanting her to come back safe. She went out to touch the universe and began to transform. She turned out to be a robot. As soon as she met, Hana was hit by a bullet. She regained her composure and dodged the next shots. The command room began to study that Hana might have the ability to predict, but she thought it was the shock. She had just returned when Ika created a plate that absorbed the bullets from Hana, and then returned the gun. Hana only had time to dodge to avoid damage. She was then locked up by Ika, and her energy was drained. Everyone was worried when a sudden life signal ran through, and caused the signal from the universe and both robots to disappear. But Hana only lost her form, but she could still feel Ika's energy, so she rushed over. Ika's cake was dodged by Hana, and rushed to shoot Ika, causing her robot to be destroyed. When the signal returned, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, because Hana had won that night. The commander called the governor, and announced that the campaign would take place in 10 days, in the meantime. On the side of the monitoring department, the commander did not believe that the plan would be completed, so he decided to act according to another plan to save mankind from extinction. The next day, a T from the monitoring side was sent down. The commander also knew the position, so he still welcomed him, and the commander knew that the T was aimed at Hana, so he left her on the universe without bringing her back. She got to play with the two space girls up here, and they asked Hana if Tepp had a boyfriend to hang out with. The new T called back to her superiors to report that Hana was not here. In the meantime, the rice cakes have prepared 2 energy tubes. The organization also reported that the rice cakes had just exploited energy and had taken a group photo of the lab. Akari wondered about the next round that the 2 always took turns wearing, so Tep explained about the game of the 2 when they arrived at the command room. The other T also expressed disbelief in the group, arguing that the group was just children and not worth trusting with world-class issues. In the meantime, the rice cakes had to choose 2 people, the others had left, so only Amarok. Mankin and Zin had to decide for themselves. Mankin was chosen with 2 boys and flipped a coin. And Zin this time was officially put into battle. As soon as the signal came, the organization immediately sent Daichi and Tep flying into battle. Both got into the robot and fired missiles into the universe. And seeing that once transformed, this time, we get to see it twice. While the 2 had not yet met, the other T sent 3 unmanned aircraft to fight. This ant moved very quickly and chaotically, making it difficult for Zin, but it was different for Mankin. She has the ability to ignite machinery, so she easily manipulated all 3 unmanned aircraft. Akari tried to sing again and called Daichi to remind him to be careful. Both were ambushed by the 3 planes and fell back. The 2 decided to stick together and shoot blindly. One accidentally fired a bullet into the sky. The remaining 2 were also recovered by Akari, and now, they have more power to deal with the other 2 rice cakes. They rushed over and Akari borrowed Daichi's system and emitted a life signal that caused the other 2 rice cakes to stop working. Both want to take the opportunity to break their power block. Although the rice cakes were robotized, the 2 blocks still had power and flew back. Tepe thinks that the block can only be destroyed by their will. While waiting to return, Amarok saw that Akari was getting more and more every day, so surely next time they would attack with all their might. Daichi then wondered about the life signal earlier, and Akari said that she had just developed it. Daichi's group is currently on the universe and the governor has ordered that all 3 be brought back to Earth tomorrow. The 2 female pilots wanted to take the opportunity to approach Tepe while he was here. The governor said that bringing Hannah back would be very difficult, but that's why only 2 boys were sent up to protect her. Only want the governor to start the tests for Daichi to be able to move on to the next step of the plan. Daichi was then trained to increase his firing power. He will have to shoot far enough to 2 units to carry out the plan. But the power output I have now is only 1.8 units. But when it came to combat, Daichi shot more than 2 units. It was because of that instability that they had to practice so that he could be sure to shoot far enough 2 units after finishing. The 2 female pilots came to the lake to ask Kipe if he liked anyone yet. Hannah was called by the governor. Daichi met an uncle in the future. Hannah wondered about being called, and the governor told her that Akari had never had anyone to be friends with. Because Akari had never opened up to anyone, but Hannah was the first person Akari called a friend. She is Akari's mother but has never spent much time with Akari, making her feel like Akari doesn't need this mother. But Hannah believes Akari doesn't think so. She doesn't have a real family, but has 3 friends who have helped her understand what it feels like to have a family. But looking at the governor, she thinks it must be great to have a family. She tried to take the governor to understand what it was like to have a mother. Daichi was now told by the boss that this ship is in the development phase. And this ship could be the last hope for mankind if they fail, and let the Earth be destroyed. He said that he was a man and a member of the team that developed this ship. He knew who Daichi was right away, and shook his hand. The next morning, all 3 were on their way back to Earth. Ted is now met by the 2 girls in the flight crew next time. The governor told Hannah to take care of Akari instead of him. Daichi remembered the handshake I had gone through, and felt that he was not worthy of the hero that everyone called him. And that kid is a bad guy. He thinks he's just a lucky guy to be chosen, and soon he'll realize he's the one he says he is. Of course, Tep realized that their route had been changed, and all 3 would land on the snail. They know this is because some of the components targeting Hannah have been plugged into the universe. All 3 then descended the snail and landed safely at the destination. Having lost contact with the commander, the group decided to activate the robot and go to the snail's base to get the job done. In the meantime, Amarok and Nanking return to the AI province, and they have a common reason for not being able to use the service. It does not know the exact color, but thinks that the service is a form of life. And it is not compatible with rice cakes, so they cannot be used. Both of them also let the AI know that the coconut president had been slandering Hannah and had been beaten up by her. The squirrel was worried about Hannah, which made Akari worry that something had happened to Hannah. Tepe's group had temporarily settled down at the base and rested and ate there. Tepe was given a lot of food by the girls during the wedding, which was very different from Daichi. It was the first time he had been abroad, and it was because of his talent. Hana asked about Daichi's parents, and both of them had passed away. Or rather, his father was presumed to have passed away because no one had confirmed his death yet. Of course, all three of them were discovered by enemy aircraft, and all three of them returned to the robot. The aircraft wanted all three of them to surrender. Taipei stood up and shot it down because it was just an unmanned aircraft of the organization they were working for. So the action was that of a member of the organization who was targeting Hana. Taipei said that he would not let anyone touch Hana, so Daichi should also be decisive when making a decision. All three of them ran down the street, and were surrounded by 2 platoons of tanks. They only attacked Taipei and Daichi, so they had already seen Hana in front of them when they fired. Both of them had to turn around and fire back, but Taipei was shot in the leg. Taipei wanted Daichi to take Hana away because their mission was to keep Hana safe. But Daichi wanted to prove himself a hero, so he hesitated. He then used his gun to shoot 2 targets, and then turned around to sweep the guns around him. He had achieved an output of 5.8 units with just that shot, which impressed Taipei. The 2 people who were still able to move decided to take Taipei to the base in the snail to rest. And the little girl and the others who were targeting Hana were just waiting for that. Of course, Akari was quick-witted and stopped the 3 of them from going to that base because the supervisors there were too powerful. So Hana would be in danger there. They decided to go to another base. There was no air defense there, and there was a ship that they could use to take all 3 of them back to Japan. But that would make all 3 of them targets of the air defense. But Akari could take care of that because she had hacked into the system of the entire organization. Only then did she notice that Hana had changed a lot compared to before. She smiled more, and acted more like Daichi. The group then just went to the other base, and naturally hijacked the ship, and returned to Japan without any hindrance. Because Akari had caused the system of the entire organization to crash for an hour. But the supervisors had a plan to follow. Akari quickly realized the plot, and the supervisors sent a flying boat. This flying boat was very advanced and fast. Even though Daichi's group was now in Japanese airspace, it was not certain that they would be able to escape unscathed. The supervisor who had been to the base had reported back to her superiors, and admitted that Daichi's group and the organization were doing quite well. But they still needed Hana to open their mouth. However, whether they could get her to listen to them was another matter. At this time, we learned that Hana had been held captive on the ship before, which was also where Daichi and Teppei had met her. She was a part of that ship, but she was very afraid to go back there. And no one knew why only Teppei could pull her out of there. At that moment, the supervisor's ship had officially caught up with Daichi's group. All 3 of them were attacked by them, but the ship was still able to move. Hana remembered a time when she was born to shoot down the enemy, but she didn't think she should do it, so she sank into darkness. But she had seen a light and someone, so she went looking for the person who had created that light, and that person was Daichi. But she thought Daichi was the one who had found her. She decided to stand up to repay the light from Daichi. So she said she would go to the robot, and Daichi also decided to go with her. She and Chihoi had already made a plan, and Akari and Teppei didn't know about it. She and Daichi had already fired, so the other ship had changed its appearance. It shot down Hana and seized the ship in order to keep Teppei and Daichi. But Hana fired a powerful shot from underwater, damaging the enemy ship. She then joined forces with the main ship to fire at the enemy ship. This was the ship that Teppei had led Daichi into to find Hana. She fired at another shot, and the other ship also fired back, but its firepower was no match for hers, and the enemy ship was destroyed. Now she had warned her that if she returned to the ship, she would not be able to escape on her own, and would need Daichi to come and rescue her. That meant that if anything happened to Daichi, she would not be able to escape from the ship. She understood that, but if Daichi was gone, she wouldn't need to leave the ship either. Daichi then went to pick up Hana and successfully brought her out of the ship. The 2 of them left, and Teppei was glad that they were both safe. It's just that the ship from the coconut would not be able to enter the other ship again. The 2 high-ranking commanders of the organization had also boarded this ship for the first time, and their presence here meant that the organization would be taking strict action. With the plan that the commander-in-chief and the commander had come up with, the governor had given Daichi a lot of words of encouragement. He said that their 3 robots would be put into Hana's mothership, which would then make a trip to the place where the world gear was being repaired. When they got there, they would use the robots to destroy the ship's energy core. The 2 commanders wanted Daichi to make sure that he could keep his output down enough to destroy the energy core again. He couldn't be sure yet, so the 2 commanders couldn't make a decision yet. The supervisors didn't want Daichi's output to exceed the control level again. They had sent a man named Poit, who was the man with glasses who Daichi had smashed in the head before. He had returned to the sightseeing ship to the space station. and Hana and the governor were both waiting for that ship because Akari was also on it. When they arrived at the station, Borth had been scanning the surroundings and many of the security cameras in the area, so he was not detected. And another unexpected character, AK, also showed up here. Because she was an AI, everyone thought she was just here to sightsee. But everything she collected during the tour was sent back to the president and the other AIs. And she had a box with her, and that box was the plot of the Amarok Society. Aika had seen enough, and Teppei and Daichi had just finished their discussion. The two of them then went to the swimming pool and met AK and the girls there. Daichi asked, and Teppei just jumped into the pool. The governor and the commander had a conversation, and the governor was worried because Daichi's group was too young. But the commander trusted them. He knew that his wife wanted to adopt Hana when the mission was over. And she also wanted to give Hana a place to call home. As for Teppei, she was still worried that Teppei would betray them because he had memories from when he was a world gear. But she still trusted Teppei because he was an indispensable part of the team. She also wondered about letting AI Aka up here, and he said that letting an AI up here would attract attention, and that the opposing factions within the organization would not dare to make a move. However, AI Ka had already gotten to the box she had brought with her, and had officially opened it. Inside was a potion that allowed her to transform. In the meantime, Daichi and Hana had gone to see the spaceship that was humanity's last hope. The governor then discovered that AI Kari and Teppei were talking to each other. Teppei had expressed all the thoughts that had been on his mind, about how he felt when he regained his memories from the world gear, and how he felt when he decided to stay with his friends. AI Kari gave him a kiss, in the hope that Teppei would have an answer. The governor was happy that he was going to have a child soon, and that Teppei was not someone to worry about. Of course, the ship suddenly shook violently, and a voice announced that he had taken control of the ship. They realized that this was the voice of the captain of the ship that had taken Hana away. And now he was pointing a gun at Daichi, and once again wanted to take Hana away. But Teppei came and pointed a gun at him, so he showed them that he had a bomb around his neck, and that if he died, the whole ship would be blown up. Akari, the one who had planted the bombs at these points, had the governor send people to these points to check. Two boys had to let Hana go because the boy had caused a disturbance before, so AKA also sat back and waited for the right time to cause a disturbance later. She was looking for something in the spaceship at this time and finally found it. Daichi had reported to the command room that the boy had taken Hana away. The governor had mobilized troops to find her. Just then they heard that a spaceship was flying towards them, and the estimated time of arrival was more than 10 minutes. Akari had informed the two boys about the spaceship, but there was still more chaos than before they discovered the spaceship. So they suspected that something more was going on, so she wanted both of them to be careful. Teppei then let Daichi go after Hana while he went to get the robot, and went outside to find a way to deal with the spaceship. But as soon as they shot down the first one, they heard that another larger one was continuing to fly towards them. Teppei fired another shot and destroyed the second one. But Aika still had more spaceships out there, and could play chase with them for as long as she wanted. She called 35 spaceships at once, and when Teppei fired, she had the spaceship she had just destroyed aim at Teppei's full set and communication set. Teppei was hit, and the spaceship continued to fly towards the spaceship. Akari had to call Daichi and tell him to take care of the safety of the ship first, because if the ship went, Hana and everyone else would go with it. Akari then discovered that the energy emission was in the cargo bay. Teppei was still trying to shoot outside, but the number was too great. Bo was a little upset because the plan was going well when the spaceship incident broke it up. Daichi had gotten into the robot, and was preparing to go out to stop it, when the number of spaceships had reached 500. Daichi had to use the plus cannon that they had planned to use to shoot the mothership of the Gear Gang. Although it had not been tested yet, it was the only way now. He had loaded the cannon with enough range, but there was a problem. Teppei was in a firing range. The boy had let Hana go, and was going back to the ship to call for as many people as possible. Daichi was under pressure at this time, but Teppei believed that Daichi would make a decision, and he chose to explode. Everything was destroyed, but Teppei somehow survived. The guards had found the bomb again, so Akari told them to shoot the energy tube first. Ika was exposed, so she decided to get away from the ship and return. When he returned to the ship, Teppei said that Daichi was still alive, because if it had been him, he would have shot sooner. The two of them then went to tap Hana together, but Boyth and Hana had come to Daichi on their own. Boyth pointed a gun at his head and asked him what he was thinking when he exploded. He said that he didn't want his friends to go away. But if Teppei had died then, he would have taken the blame to protect humanity. He decided to believe him, and removed the bomb from his neck. He wanted him to promise that he would protect the Earth, and the place where his family lived. The next day, the whole group began the process of combining the last hope of humanity's spaceship with Hana's ship. Since it was the first time they had tried it, they were not sure if it would work. But in the end, Teppei said it was okay, so they would still do it. Akari also talked about the project that people were trying to implement on the surface. The governor said that at first, people planned to create a force field to control Hana's ship from afar, if she could not control the ship. They planned to use it to avoid causing damage to Hana. And if there was a problem, the commander was ready to take responsibility, but only the commander knew the status of the control device, and it was rumored that only part of it was operational. The overseers saw that point had failed, so they decided to use a more drastic approach. Amarok, the head of the Gear Gang, was about to start a major battle, and the whole Gear Gang was now turning 3 corners with Shuna back with energy and the last few pilots. They knew that their time in this world was coming to an end, and Mang still felt that the Earth was not so bad. The commander's terminal suddenly called both the spaceship and Hana's ship. They talked for a while, and then someone discovered that the Gear Gang was gathering a large amount of energy, so they were about to launch an all-out attack in robot form. Daichi had decided to go with the group to the end of Pluto. No! Everyone raised their hands to greet the group, and wanted the group to return to Antone together. Hana then went down to the mothership to control it, and wanted to go with the group, and go to the festival as promised. Teppei gave the ring back to Daichi because he was a real captain when he accepted both him and the spaceships. But Daichi wanted Teppei to keep it as a promise to return together. Hana then began to take off to activate the mothership and the temple. The gears that hid the energy signal realized that Teppei had really given up the life of a gear without any hesitation. Daichi's group discovered that the overseers had sent a large-scale model to stop them. The model had released several small aircraft before, so Daichi went to get the robot to fight. The model had fired a shot at the mothership, so Teppei had to use the cannon to create a shield and fire back. After a while, Hana was also ready to perform the jump to the end of Pluto. Akari called Daichi back, but he was still being harassed by the small aircraft. He was determined not to let the overseers stop him, so he shot down the aircraft and tried to return to the ship. But the jump was about to be made, and Daichi still hadn't made it. Hana couldn't stop, so they could only hope that Daichi would make it in time, because if anything happened to him, Hana would be stuck in the ship. He used the cannon to speed it up and catch up with the ship, but the model was about to fire a very powerful shot. Of course, everything lit up, and Daichi was taken back to the time when he had just started his vacation. He thought he had just had a very long dream. Everything was repeated from when he went to school with his uncle, and felt a little strange about the incident. He then went to the game center and went to his friend's house, but strangely enough, his friends were Amarok, Mankin, and Ika. He had other images with Amarok, and when the TV was about to report on his ring, Ika turned off the TV on the way home. He saw the image of his ring on TV again, but Baku drew his attention to someone else turning off the TV. When he got home, he felt like he was at a festival, and that it meant something to him. He then went to the shrine and asked his uncle about eating watermelon, because he kept seeing images of watermelon in it. He then went to the shrine and met Din to Sin dozens of times, and the two of them had a small talk. Daikia then went up to Cebus and met Seisuna, and also confided in him. He said that he was living in a way that she hated, which made her feel sorry for him, so Daichi advised her to try to change her way of life. The two of them then met at Enenjin Helan, and drove a motorbike into Cebus, and he was surprised that a guy like this didn't get hurt at all. The two girls then left, and Daichi took a taxi to get there. The driver gave him a message for the future as déjà vu, a strange rain, like forgotten memories, and most importantly, the way people called him. From the captain, he then did not know how he came to be. When he went, he accidentally met Hana's boy, and remembered that he had to go back, but he did not know how to go back. He stopped at a regular gun shop. He tried to sell it to the guy, but the gears kept appearing behind him to persuade him to stay. But he came to his senses and saw this gun as his own gun, and what he had to take was his ring and his wings. He had returned and had caught up with the ship. He fired a shot that destroyed the model, and then he was ready to go on with the group. The group teleported, but only reached a star's surface after one more trip. Wa suspected that the enemy had intervened, then Daikia remembered that he had been manipulated for a long time. Of course, the gear signal and the flying shrimp recognized that it was the old lady, so they ran away immediately to help the big guy. The big guy tried to sell it and realized that this overwhelming power was the old lady. The old lady rushed to attack with an extremely overwhelming blow. The old lady thought that human life was too short and meaningless, and that human life was not up to gears like them to decide. The flying shrimp had brought it down and wanted to get this big guy out. But he was smashed down on his face and dragged into the vault. He was completely overwhelmed by the old lady and could not fight back. Just as the old lady was about to let him go, the flying shrimp drove the gun down and teleported in front of the old lady and exploded. The sail completely destroyed the old lady's force field when she returned to the ship. Akarine thought that the flying shrimp had performed the teleportation that Hana had used. And maybe this teleportation ability is from the gun, so the big guy can also use it if he knows how. And the gear has chosen to stop them instead of attacking the Earth, because if they let the ship's energy fault be lost, they will not be able to move out of the solar system. And the new cannon has been able to completely destroy the force field, so the whole group hopes to win and destroy all the gears. After the second teleportation, the whole group officially arrived at the gear ship. The flying shrimp and the big guy fought hard. The flying shrimp used the cannon to create damage while the big guy attacked. Hana's mothership fired a large missile to penetrate the main ship and enter. The whole group then officially arrived at the ship's fault and planned to destroy it when they were ambushed by the whole group of gears. Amarok was impressed that the group was able to get this far. Hana gave them a choice to become friends with them. To let them speak, he gave Viv, Marie to the gear ship, but was blocked and returned by someone. The fault has now been revealed to be the AI in the group. It said that it must now eliminate the things that are making it hairy. It fired a wheelbarrow, but Ling stood up to it, and suddenly she was transformed into a force field and exploded. The AI said bluntly that it was tired of being a tool for the gears, and that it would now turn them into its tools. It can create force fields in any creature, so it can also turn that force field into a bomb with extremely powerful force. The big guy flew over and was thrown a force field by it, but he still managed to get in and make the whole fault explode. I thought it was over, but the AI had become a larger force field. It said that it had evolved into this form, and that its vitality would remain as long as the other force fields existed. The big guy attacked, but it created a strange shield. The flying shrimp attacked, but it created another shield. It saw that the whole group had put Hana into the ship, and now it would not be able to escape. But the big guy was confident that he would be able to get Hana out. The thing is, if the ship is destroyed now, Hana will die. It has evolved into a new form, but Hana is still just a part of that ship. The big guy and the flying shrimp swooped down, but it blocked them all, and then entered Ik and used Ike's force field to enter Ike. The flying shrimp created a shield to protect both of them. But the AI went to Hana's mothership and merged with it. The ship released Ikrid's small ship, and then it went inside and took Hana, and took over the body at the same time, using the gun of the body. It then transformed the ship into a robot form, and revealed its real name as Robin. Xing thought to himself that he would take advantage of the gun and create infinite energy, but the gun still couldn't sell, because the unwritten rule is that the gun will not accept any force field. Han decided that if he couldn't use it, he would destroy it all. The flying shrimp and Daichi went to fight together. The gear gangs also participated, but could not cause any fatal damage. Sekshuna decided to sacrifice the force field to destroy him, because she now understands herself and Robin. They are all arrogant creatures and have done a lot to make people see her. Everyone was ready for Amarok. Daichi was having trouble with Robin and was about to get shot, when Mankin stepped up to block him. She said that she just didn't want to owe Daichi for making them realize the nature of this life. But Amarok chose to rush over and sacrifice himself for Mankin. Seishuna and the other two also chose to listen to their emotions and fight to the end. The three of them rushed into Robin together. Daichi's group was blown away, but the flying shrimp used armor to protect them. However, Robin was still alive and was only running low on energy, so he used teleportation to get to Earth. The two friends believed that Daichi would be able to follow suit, and he also chose to believe in himself and took off. Robin arrived first and the commander realized that it was Hana's ship. Daichi also arrived shortly after, and he rushed to the top of the fight. He was shot and lost an arm, and then punched. He grabbed onto the hand and used the cannon on his head to punch a hole and crawl inside. He then had to abandon the robot, and use only the small robot to calculate later. He arrived at the explosion and confronted Robin. He knew that he loved Hana, but if he destroyed this ship, Hana would die. And if he followed him and used the gun to serve him, he would let him stay with Hana. He put down the gun, and kissed Hana to take advantage of her mind-reading ability, and pull her back. Hana was officially released from the ship. But Robin said that even if Hana escaped, he would still win because if this whole robot fell to Earth, it would cause destruction. He would die if he fell into the atmosphere. She was willing to die with this ship, just to protect the planet and the people she loved. The big guy decided to help her because she was so much like his father. The two combined their shots and penetrated Robin, and then shot through the entire ship. He decided to take both of them with him. The big guy got back to the robot in time, but But Hana lost her hand and then the whole robot exploded. Everyone thought Hana was dead. But the big guy had already learned a lot from the blonde girl, who had once led him inside the ship, and to the gun. And the movie ends here.